Hey everyone, it is Echo here, and I am back for another 911 Lone Star episode review. Today we're going to be talking about Season 5, Episode 9, titled Fall from Grace, and I absolutely adored this episode, so let's get started.
Triola, yeah. I worked with a Vinny Triola.
Vinny was my father. We all saw what you did, standing up for your brothers and sisters down here. That's the kind of fight we need from our next fire chief.
Your next fire chief, what about Chief Provenzolo?
He hasn't announced it yet, but he's retiring next month, which is why I'm here. Captain Strands, we want you to come home to become the next fire chief of New York City.
So Owen is offered a huge position at the beginning of this episode. The opportunity to be fire chief for NYC. First of all, that is a massive and huge opportunity. I don't know how anyone could pass that up. Also, with the show ending, I think this could be a really great way to send Owen off. It would very much be a full circle moment to see him end up back in the city we first met him in back in Season 1. But obviously, this decision doesn't come easily for him, so let's watch.
We took a straw poll in every house, from Westchester to Staten Island, about who could pull us out of this mess. And one name came up more than any other. Yours.
I'm honored to hear that. But, I have a firehouse.
A firehouse you rebuilt that, by all accounts, is thriving.
But my son is here.
Owen is definitely struggling with the decision. Owen's life is now in Austin. Specifically, his people are in Austin. He has his 126 crew who have basically become family to him, and he has his son, TK. However, unlike the beginning of the show, he's not really needed in Austin anymore. His 126 crew is thriving, and TK doesn't need him. He has Carlos now. Owen isn't needed as he once was. So maybe it's time to go where he really is needed, and that appears to be New York City.
Saying that I would always be there for them and their families as long as I was here. I kind of feel like that bill has come due.
So you told him yes?
I told him to think about it.
What is there to think about? Owen, this is the #1 fire service job in the country, probably in the world, and it's coming your way.
So Owen confides in Judd with this dilemma. Judd is a great friend who is happy for him and wants him to take this job. Again, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So Judd takes him out to celebrate and to figure out how to break the news to the team, where we learn that Owen thinks Judd should become the captain of the 126. I couldn't agree more. Owen going back to New York City would be a full circle moment, but also Judd becoming captain of the 126 would also be a full circle moment. As we come to the end of the show, I think both these characters would have a very fitting ending, with Owen being fire chief of New York City and Judd as captain. I would have no qualms about it. However, there is one issue.
I guess right after Grace left, from the day I met her, that woman's been the center of my life, and she's gone now, and I don't have a center.
I'm worried about you, Judd.
Don't be. Listen, okay, starting today, I'm back on track. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna do that cold turkey.
I've heard that before.
Cap, I'm serious.
Throughout the last few episodes, you can kind of start to tell that there is something up with Judd. He's drinking a lot. As it turns out, this drinking problem seems to have started after Grace left. Grace was the center of Judd's world, and now that she's gone, he's off balance. Now that Owen has caught Judd, Judd is finally recognizing he has a problem, and he says it ends right then and there. Unfortunately, that's not usually the case. It won't be easy to just stop. Owen should know that after seeing his son struggle for so long with drugs. I hope in the future episodes we can see TK maybe help Judd through this. But also, this leads to Owen declining the position in New York City. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of bummed about that. However, Owen would pick a friend over a job any day. Owen is not going to leave Judd alone as he struggles. Now let's move on and talk about my favorite, Carlos.
Johns, Dixon Mafia, same thing.
So you're saying a ranger sold out the identities of all these CIs to the very people they were snitching?
It wasn't me who said it. It was Nestor Grimes. Before he died, he told me my father warned him a ranger was exposing our CIs.
What? How come you didn't say anything at the hospital?
Because my father told him. It was Ranger Campbell.
After learning about the other CIs and what Campbell might have done, he takes this information to Chief Bridges. The whole time I'm yelling at my screen, trying to tell Carlos to not trust Bridges. Like, I don't trust him and I don't care what anyone else says. But Bridges says he will look into the information and see if Campbell accessed the files of the CIs, which is illegal. And in the end, when Bridges checks, he does see that Campbell accessed the files. This leads them to issue a warrant, and Carlos and Bridges goes to Campbell's house to take Campbell back to the station. When Campbell realizes what's going on, he escapes. Yeah, people who are innocent don't usually run away. So that made me very skeptical, but I was still quite positive that it wasn't Campbell that murdered Gabriel. While this is all going down and Carlos is getting closer, we see TK at Tommy's chemotherapy appointment talking about the whole adoption argument. So let's take a look.
Well, I am. As for Carlos, I'm not so sure. He says that he's still not ready.
Whoa. Did you, like, give him an ultimatum?
No, it's just the facts. If I'm gonna choose between my husband and my baby brother, I'm gonna go with my brother.
Well, let's hope it doesn't get to that.
So to be honest, this scene made me incredibly pissed at TK. I was honestly fuming while watching it. The only thing stopping me from completely hating his guts at this point is the kid in question is his brother. His brother who is a piece of his mom. But still, these last 2 episodes, I don't think much time has passed. Not enough time to really sit down as a couple and talk this through. Again, like I mentioned in last review, TK is making a decision without consulting Carlos. Like I mentioned, Carlos did that when he bought the loft and TK broke up with him for a few minutes. So yeah, TK needs to slow the frick down. And then without any discussion for TK to say if Carlos isn't on board, it's over between the two. Yeah, I was upset. TK knows that Carlos thinks he may never be a good enough father. And TK agreed to the possibility that they may never have kids. And now it feels like TK is going back on his promise. And also, Enzo hasn't even gone to trial yet. He could still walk away from this clean. I'm sure Enzo is able to get a really good lawyer. So all I'm asking is for TK to slow down and be a little more patient on this. Now, let's bring it back to Carlos, where him and Bridges have brought in Campbell's wife for questioning.
I wear one too. It brings me great comfort. But it also helps me be accountable, to be kind, and honest. I know you know where your husband is. If you don't want to tell us for your sake, fine. Tell us for the next person he's...
So we got to meet Campbell's wife this episode. She was brought in for questioning. They want to know where Campbell ran off to, and they think his wife knows. And they will arrest her for aiding and abetting if she doesn't speak. What I really want to talk about in this scene is how Carlos brings up the crucifix that he wears, one that Campbell's wife is also wearing. Carlos explains that he wears one for comfort and to remain accountable and to be kind and honest. I love that Carlos brought this up. I was so excited when I first saw Carlos start to wear one. I like to think that Carlos grew up going to church. I like to think that with everything he's gone through, he still has faith. I don't wear one, but I do have a cross tattooed on me, as my faith is very important to me. Like Carlos, it brings me comfort. But more importantly, it reminds me to be good, to be humble, and to most importantly, to love. Unfortunately, Carlos bringing this up did not change Campbell's wife's mind, and she refused to talk.
I tried to help Jerry while that monster cleared out the safes.
You're saying safes, as in you have more than one?
One with cash and jewels, the other with guns.
Do you know what he took?
Everything he could carry, along with our car.
Can you describe the man?
He's tall, white, 30s or 40s.
Could it have been him?
Yes, that's him.
So the Rangers respond to an intruder call where a man was stabbed. Here they name Campbell as the intruder. So this whole time I've been thinking Chief Bridges is the bad one, but this scene definitely had me questioning, why would Campbell do such a thing if he was good? Anyways, this causes Campbell's wife to admit to where Campbell is heading, and that leads to a manhunt for Ranger Campbell and eventually a shootout. And here, Carlos solves the case. Carlos finally, after all this time, figures out who killed his father. Let's take a look.
Daddy thought Campbell did it too. Until they suspected somebody hacked his credentials to access those names. I guess that makes you the better ranger. You never could get to the bottom of it.
Because you killed him.
Oh, hell no. Campbell did. With a ghost gun. Not unlike the one he used to kill his only son. The one I'm gonna find on his body once I go up there and take his ass out.
Well, fuck you, Bridges. I was right all along. It was the chief, and the chief was trying to set Campbell up. That's why Campbell ran, so he could find a way to prove he was innocent. Bridges killed Carlos' father. Says he feels sorry for ruining his wedding. Like, yeah, you do. You shouldn't have killed him in the first place. And then he shot my baby Carlos. He shot Carlos after this whole season Bridges kept calling him son. Like, fuck you, Bridges. Carlos ain't your son, and fathers don't go around killing their sons. Gosh, I don't like seeing Carlos in pain. Thankfully, Campbell came through and saved Carlos from being killed. I'm not gonna lie, I wish Bridges would have rotted in jail for the rest of his life. But then again, I prefer not to see Carlos dead, so. But did this come as a shock to you all, that it was Bridges that killed Gabriel? Or did you see it coming? I want to know your thoughts.
Yeah, stop it, man, stop. You just followed the evidence where it led. Sorry I pinned you down with an AR. Just so you know, I never fired a shot at you. Okay? Just a big guy.
Why did you figure out it was him who was setting you up?
As soon as you guys showed up at my kid's party, Bridges was the only one who had my login. Knew I was cooked. So I had to get out of the country and buy some time till I figured out how to prove I was innocent.
So here we have our last scene with Ranger Campbell at the hospital. It looks like both Carlos and Sam are going to be okay. Carlos was a lucky duck, thankfully. Here in the hospital, Carlos apologizes to Campbell, and Campbell was gracious to accept the apology. I'm honestly going to miss Campbell. I really enjoyed getting to know this character and to see the dynamic between Carlos and him. I'd kill to see a spinoff with these two. I think there's so much story to dig deep into between the two of them as Rangers, but also as individuals.
You were my dad.
And I hope you'll be with me as I become one too.
In this last scene of the episode, we see Carlos speaking to his father at his gravesite. Y'all, this scene left me in tears. Now that Carlos solved the case, he finds that the grief hits harder because he doesn't have that piece to hold on to anymore. Now he has to move on and face the future. And that future is Carlos as a dad with his husband TK by his side. Carlos finally admits to his father that he's ready to become one. I knew he would be ready at some point. He just needed time. And now he is, and he hopes that he can make his father proud. And I know he can. And I know Gabriel is already proud of him. Proud of Carlos as a Texas Ranger. Y'all, Carlos solved the case that his own father couldn't crack. Proud of him as a husband. Carlos may have fallen down a path of not exactly being all present, but he recognized his shortcomings and worked to change that. And I know Gabriel will be proud of the dad Carlos will become. Carlos will make an incredible dad. Carlos will be the most supportive and proud father. I just know it. And I just hope that Carlos can walk into a future full of light and happiness. And for what he's been through, he deserves it. So before I get into my top 5 episodes, I just wanted to take a moment to talk about how much Carlos has meant to me these past 5 seasons. This episode was basically the end of Carlos' storyline, his arc. Yes, he will still be in the final 3 episodes, but this was his big ending. So this episode for me was very bittersweet, knowing that I've reached basically the end of Carlos' journey. As I've mentioned before, Carlos is the first character on TV I've truly seen myself in. Carlos became my favorite character, my comfort character. But he also became more than that. Carlos became my best friend. Carlos became a part of me. And it kind of feels like I'm losing part of myself right now. I prepared myself for a while that the show is ending, and for the most part, I've been okay until this episode. I guess I'm not ready to let Carlos go. So much so that I have an appointment to ink him on me forever, so I never truly have to let him go. That I will always have that reminder that I'm not broken, that my past doesn't have to shape my future, that I am loved. Carlos's journey has truly been remarkable, and I will miss him so freaking much. Thank you, Rafael Silva, for portraying Carlos with the sincerity and dedication he deserved. There was no one better for the role than you. So now, on to my top 5. Last week, here was my top 5 favorite 911 Lone Star episodes. In number 1, we had 417 Best of Men and 418 In Sickness and in Health. In number 2, we had 3-4 Push. In number 3, we had 5-8 The Quiet Ones. In number 4, we had 4-9 Roadkill. And in number 5, we had 212 The Big Heat. And here is my new top 5 favorite 911 Lone Star episodes. As you can see, I have lumped 5-8 The Quiet Ones and 5-9 Fall from Grace together and thrown them into my number 1 slot. Like 417 and 418, these 2 episodes felt more like a 2-part story than 2 separate episodes. It was a 2-part story to wrap up Carlos' arc on the show, and they did that with suspense, shock, fear, happiness, and hope. Carlos got to end his story with facing a future of happiness with TK and soon to be a child. I got to see my favorite character solve the case that has haunted him for far too long, and now look forward to what's about to happen next, instead of being stuck in his past. Seeing the storyline come to end was beautifully touching, and it had to land in my first place. Now I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching this review. I hope you liked it. Give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this episode. We sadly only have 3 more Lone Star episodes until the end of the show, but I will be back for those reviews, so stay tuned.